Hello and welcome to our fireside chat. My name is Riccardo Galbiati and I'm the regional CSO at Palo Alto Networks for the JPAC region. In my role, I help organizations build secure and robust cybersecurity frameworks and at the same time staying as resilient as possible. And today I'm joined by Robert Sibo, who is the head of AI and ML at customer engineering at Google. Hi, Robert. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Exciting on this nice rainy day here in Sydney.
So we're going to talk about AI adoption, but before that, could you share a little bit about your role? I'm sure that our audience is interested in knowing what you do as a head of AI and ML at Google.
As part of the customer engineering team, we basically look over how AI ML fits within actual customers' needs. So focusing on bringing the best of the products from the Google suite to all of our customers, big, small, here in Australia and New Zealand. With everything changing as quickly as it is, just keeping on top of that's very difficult. It's challenging even for us. So really helping to be that support.
And so I assume, obviously, you're covering the Australian and New Zealand region. You would have a lot of examples of what good AI adoption looks like. You would have use cases and things that have worked and things that haven't worked. Could you share some of that potentially? What are typical use cases you see of AI adoption that you are fully supportive and seeing happening as fast and as securely as possible?
Yeah. So the early, and again, this only goes back 12 months or so, everything's moving very quickly, but the first wave was really around AI as a tool. How do I use something like Gemini to ask questions and do research? But now in 2025, we're really moving to the next phase, and there was a lot of benefits with that, but it was really personal level benefits. Now we're getting into the next wave, which is really much around collaboration or even automation of processes and workflows. You might call that agentic processes. And this is really around creating efficiencies for both the individual, but also the team, the organization, or population in general. So it's a pretty exciting period. But what I would say is what is working is building momentum. The companies that started with something small, explored it, tried it out, figured out what's sticking and what's resonating is quite important versus the big bang. When I look at some of the AI transcription products that are coming out, and we just had a release with Heidi Health. This was built on trust by working with physicians hand in hand, iteratively building it out, and it's creating a huge benefit for them. If I also look at some of the telcos who are using call center automation, they're getting like 15% deflection on people who otherwise would have called into a person can now be handled by an AI. And again, this is iterative steps, and they've built the trust and confidence in the product and with the population to be able to get those benefits. So, figuring out the right use case, iterating on it and building up that confidence and trust is quite important. And the technology, the infrastructure, the platform that's going to enable that at scale and in a secure way.
Excellent. Very well said. And I fully agree with you. There's a lot of trial and error. I find it myself in my personal usage that I try to push the limit of what AI can do and still find a few shortcomings here and there so I know how far I can go. And then I can pivot maybe and make it try something else until I find the sweet spot where the output of that delivery is exactly where I need it to be. Now, there are obviously, beyond the technology of AI itself, in terms of adoption, there are places and locations where to deploy that is most successful. Obviously, the cloud sounds like the place where it should be. But the cloud in itself also requires, it has the traditional security elements around it that we have been used and become accustomed to in the last probably 10, 15 years. But now putting AI out there into the cloud exposes the AI engines and models and the databases themselves to potential new vectors, right? So how does Google, and how also in combination with Palo Alto Networks, do we see that runtime element being taken care of?
Well, certainly security by obscurity is no longer a strategy. It certainly won't work. And what we're finding is deliberate secure layers, both responsible and privacy issues, but also just proper cybersecurity controls are important. All of your existing cybersecurity investments are just as relevant. You might be able to trick an LLM to let some information out, whether it's prompt injection or anything else, but ultimately the data still needs to be extracted. So all of the cybersecurity platform and everything else needs to be put in there. We have been building a platform that has the building blocks for a secure, scalable AI solution, and stuff like our data loss prevention or a model armor, which really helps build secure pipelines But now increasingly, the runtime security is important. So you're going to have multiple agents, maybe even hundreds of agents running in parallel, some of them customer facing, some of them employee facing. You're not going to be able to watch and prevent everything proactively. You need to have runtime security on top of that. And that's where working with partners like yourself, I think is quite exciting to see some of the stuff that you guys have built out with Prisma. But that runtime is very important. Just like data governance, a lot of that's about constantly monitoring the data.
And you're absolutely right. When I hear you talk about platforms, I cannot stop thinking about how we see the vision of cybersecurity in itself with platformization and the likes. And you rightfully say Prisma Airs has been co-developed and built in Google Cloud as well to be able to offer that kind of modular approach to securing AI applications from the way they're getting built, but especially at the runtime element. One of the particular differentiators, I would say, is the AI red teaming capability. So having finally AI agents test the AI models before humans are given the chance to. That allows that constant 24/7 penetration testing, if you want to call it like that, against AI models, which is very, very interesting. Now, we mentioned data, right? And data is critical to run AI. It is critical to train, as I said, but also to access and share and retrieve with these models. And things like prompt injections, as we said, I call it the new social engineering, if you think about it. We don't social engineer anymore a person, but we social engineer an AI LM around it. Yeah. How are you seeing that around the ground when you're talking to organizations? Are they worried about these new vectors, and are they maybe holding back some of the deployments they would be doing if they felt secure enough?
Yeah. Well, certainly the number one limiting factor, I would say, is trust.
Yes.
Hardware people might say CPUs and the access to NVIDIA and tensor processing units, but trust is the biggest step. Once we get past that, we can solve the technology. And that trust is going to come from the governance and monitoring, understanding what data is being exposed to the models, controlling what data is being shared with the models. Most people have this assumption that you're opening up the complete data warehouse or the complete SAP. That's not the truth. In the early days when we were hacking together these solutions, that might have been the case. But access controls, identification, authorization at the individual layer is what's required for production use cases. So building that out at the technology or the platform layer is quite important. Building out the governance so that you understand what data is flowing and what has access to is also very important. But like I said, trust is the first thing that you need to get through.
100%. And I think I've spoken to a few customers that have approached this AI adoption journey with the matter of let's remove trust from the picture. Meaning we will not let our people know that they are dealing with AI, and they will think they're dealing with a person, so they don't have that bias of trusting or not trusting the model answers. And that is probably the first hurdle that needs to be addressed, being able to confidently trust AI. And to get to that point, you're right, framework, governance, and capabilities around security.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, that was a very interesting discussion and very insightful. Thank you very much for sharing it. And hopefully to our audience, you also got something new, some new perspective to learn from our conversation on how to adopt AI securely with Palo Alto Networks and Google. And stay secure. Thank you very much.